Now, when I do children's programs, this is the time to ask questions, if you have any. Anybody have anything they want to know, like how much money I make, what kind of a car I drive? Oh, no, children want to know that. I drive an SUV because I have sheep and goats on my property, and I carry them around in my car. Well, I can't put them in a horse trailer. They're too little. Anyone want to know anything? Yes.
How'd you get started? Where did you send your first story for someone to?
I didn't start writing till I was 41. I'm going to sit down. Before then, I restored antiquities for museums. That's what I did. I'm an expert on restoring icons, Greek and Russian, both. You come into my house, you've been there, you're going to see icons all over my walls. My father was a born-again Christian, so I have his memorabilia. My mother's family was Jewish, so I have a mezuzah and a shofar. All of it is there, and if you wonder what I am, all of the above. But it's very technical work. You have to use a gas chromatograph, mass spectrometer. It's very technical. Flies in the face of who I am. This was not for me. So I kind of piddled around with it for a while, and I would go back to it and then abandon it, go back to it. But finally, at 41, the turning point that made me become an author. All right, let me backtrack a minute. If you had been a friend of mine as a child, whenever there was a birthday at your house and I got invited, my family was too poor to buy you anything. So I made for you what is called a fat card. I took typing paper, sewed the edge of it, put cardboard on that, and then glued cloth on that. It was a book. And then I would draw you. I couldn't write, but I could draw you, and it would be your likeness. You would know it's you. A wordless book about you. So I've done this all my life. When I was 41, though, my son was diagnosed with insulin-dependent diabetes. And we were sent home from the hospital with shopping bags full of material that little boy had to read. And I thought, he's just a baby. He can't read this. So the first book I did for him was a wordless book showing him what he had to do to get through the day. Every diabetic I know, that's all they want. Keep me on my feet. Tell me what I have to do. So Kaiser Permanente, you don't have them out here, do you? But they do in California. They bought that book and offered it to their diabetic patients. So Thatcher Hurd was a friend of mine. His father was Clement C. Hurd. Clem Hurd and Margaret Wise Brown did Goodnight Moon. So Thatcher saw this book and said, Tricia, have you ever thought of really doing this? I said, well, I've thought about it, but, I've thought about it. He said, you need to come to the meetings of the Society of Children's Book Writers. They've added "and" illustrators just a few years ago, but that's what it was at the beginning. So I went along to meetings and found out how books are formatted. And the beautiful thing about children's authors, when they are meeting and you are a newcomer, they are very happy to help you. They throw out a rope and they pull you up the cliff. If you are adult fiction, they want you dead. They'll kill you on the front porch. So my mother, 35 years ago, bankrolled a trip for me to New York. She went with me. We flew in on the red eye. We arrived on St. Patrick's Day. Well, I was seeing 16 publishers in 1 week, which means I had to cross the parade route 4 times in 1 day. And that means your cab pulls up to Fifth Avenue, you get out, run across, get in another cab, and keep going. I saw 16 publishers in 1 week, sold everything that I had. And the rest is history. That's how it all happened. That's how it all happened. Yes, sweetie? Huh? I'm telling you. She's asking me, do I have a favorite book that I've written? Now, that's like asking me which one of my children I love the most. I love the books where I've done drawings of people in my family who've passed, because I look at their faces and my heart sings, because there they are. And then when you look at them, you bring them back. But whether I like one better than another, not really. Not really. Oh, let me show you the newest book. You guys are going to love this one. Oh, it's on the floor. Can I bend over? Maybe not. The book it's called The Bravest Man in the World, and it's about Wallace Hartley, who was the head violinist on the Titanic. Nobody has ever written about them. These men, my God, they stood there and played knowing they were going to die, yet they played to bring peace and some sort of peace to those poor souls, 1,500 people who died needlessly. It's probably some of the best artwork I've done. This comes out next fall. The book that comes out after that is called Sissy Boy, the Cootie, and Her Ugliness. Well, no, this is when I was in junior high, and this is my two friends and I who were horribly teased. Tom Schoaf, who was Sissy Boy, ended up becoming the artistic director of the American Theater Ballet in New York. And Raban Salz, who was the ugly girl, ended up being a fashion designer, and she's in Paris. And she's rather a beautiful girl. She actually is. And then me, I ended up writing for children. They called me the Cootie because when I was being teased, my face would erupt in sores. And no matter what I did, they wouldn't go away because my stomach was always so upset. And the more they teased me, the worse it got. It just got worse. So, kids are dealing with this sort of thing. Then the book that comes out after that, the working title is called The Palace of Books. And it is about the Willard Library in Battle Creek. And I went in there at 4.5, thinking, well, if you can borrow books, I just picked up a book and was going to walk out with it. Apparently, that's not quite how it goes. And it was an art book, and it was part of a permanent collection that you're not allowed to remove. So, but Miss Creevy, who was the librarian there, we developed an amazing relationship, and eventually she took me up into the stacks, and the floors were this glass. They were like glass bricks. I don't know how to describe them, but the light would come through them, and she put me down, put white gloves on me, and got the elephant edition of Audubon's, put it in my lap, and opened it and said, "You may look at this." Well, I had a fascination for birds. I'm kind of an amateur ornithologist, and I joined the Audubon Society as a very small girl. But we then started going to the bird sanctuary in Battle Creek, and I was in Miss Bice's first grade. And this is when she knew that there was something extraordinary because I could draw light years ahead of kids my age. Couldn't read, couldn't do math, couldn't do anything you do, but I understood congruency of 3 dimension too, which is inexplicable. At 4, you could take me to your house. I could walk through it once and do an architectural rendering with elevations. Still can. I know exactly how things work, but I can't do simple things that you do. But at any rate, I started drawing the birds. And I go up and look at Audubon's beautiful paintings. Of course, mine were nothing like his, but that didn't matter. So we eventually decided to turn Miss Bice's first grade into a bird sanctuary. And we had them all over the walls, and we invited the parents to come. We made butter by taking, the heavy cream and in a jar, and pretty soon you've got butter. So they were served butter on graham crackers, and we gave little speeches about these birds. So, a library means so much to me, too, because, she could have said, you're too little, I don't want you here. But she understood that this is a little kid that can't read. But she took me up and showed me the art books. Here in the museum, I've been in your library, and I was just saying to this lovely young woman, "Ooh, can I come here sometime and just peruse your books?" She says, actually we allow people to do that. Well, no, it's a wonderful thing, because if you have a child that is all interested in art, put them in front of the works of the masters, because this will incite them to riot. And they will do everything they can to become a fine artist. So that's what Willard Library did for me. And I have a million others. I've got stories always going on in my mind. But those are kind of the ones that are imminent. Yes?
Why did you change the teacher's name?
Oh, good. I was going to come to that and forgot. I can draw you against your will, and I can use you in a book. If I use your name, I can't. You have to sign a release to the publisher. Any children that are used in a book, you have to get the parents' permission. Well, George Felker was out of the country at the time the book was being published. And I knew he wouldn't object, but the lawyers say, oh, no. So they get around it by changing one letter of his last name. So from Felker, it became Falker. But of course it's him. But apparently that gives them deniability. Say, oh no, that isn't who it is. Looks like him, walks like him, everything about it is like him. The name sounds like him, but it's not him. So that's why. There are cases, Mary has been in my books, and I certainly used her name, but she herself was a lawyer.
But you didn't make me skinny.
Well, yeah. You know, though, when I draw myself, especially the way I look now, I don't make me skinny either. I mean, that's kind of truth in literature. Don't I wish, just by wishing it so, that all the weight would peel off, but who knows. But anyone else? Yes?
Was there any, what did you know you would draw?
From day one. Always have been able to draw. I actually, when my mom died, I found a closet full of manila paper from her kindergarten class, and she'd bring them home but turn them over, and I could draw on the other side. And they were pretty darn good. No, I got perspective. I mean, it kind of surprised me. I didn't realize I could draw that well. And my father's mother was an artist, and my mother's father was an artist. And they were divorced when I was 3, and they both moved back in with their parents. So in both households, I had my grandparents, and they were artists. So there was an easel always set up. There was always art out on a table. And that's why I have my studio in a house different than the one I live in, because if you have to clean it up every day, you're not going to do it anymore. An art room usually is so dirty you can spit on the floor. But that's exactly right, because then it doesn't inhibit you. You're going to create, and you're going to throw things all over, and you're going to make a mess. But does that answer it for you? Okay. Yeah? Yes?
What brought you back to Michigan?
Earthquake and a fire. I lived in Oakland. I was in the earthquake of 1989, which was almost a 7-pointer. That was a bad one. And then 1 year to the day later was the Oakland fire that burned 3,900 houses down in one night. And then my mother died, and I got a divorce, and I said, why am I still here? I want to go home. I want to go on I bought the farm and literally had renovated it on the phone and with fax machines. And I moved here, 23 years ago, has it been? Because Mary's known me ever since I came here. And I love that farm. I mean, I rescue animals. And it's an interesting little village. I'm getting, a complete view, though, of the sadness of being in a place that is literally economically depressed. You're in a thriving area where you're still putting up new buildings, not where we are. It'll change, I hope. But in my little town, I bought an old Victorian firehouse, and I turned it into a center for art, music, and drama. And I brought ethnic groups in on purpose so that our kids could understand the world is made up of people that look a lot different than they do. And my best friend, Stuart, was an actor, and he used to come in and do little theater. And they would want to touch his skin. They wanted to touch his hair. And they adored him. So, I have since sold the building to a yoga person in my town. because it got to the point where I couldn't keep all of this stuff up. And she's keeping up with our programs. She and I still do them from time to time. But I love that little village. I get exasperated with some of the attitudes because, I'm used to living in a multicultural area. And I've moved to white rural America. And some of the attitudes that prevail there are enough to stop your heart in your chest. And so we're kind of on this dead heat race of trying to enlighten these children to understand the lies they're hearing is really not what the world is like. And also to make them believe in themselves. Because if they don't believe in themselves, nobody else is going to. So, slowly but surely, we're probably doing this. Mary has helped me with a lot of programs, and Molly will someday. She doesn't know, but, oh, yes, you will. I don't care if you have homework. You've got to help. No, she has, actually, and Mary's other daughter is here. Where is she? Oh, see, I haven't seen her in a while, and isn't she gorgeous? Good Lord. When do these people grow up? That isn't the way I wrote the script. Because when I first met Mary, they were little teensy girls. They were little girls. Well, like I say, my daughter is 51 and my son's 48. When did that happen? But anyway, anybody got anything else? Yes?
So on the days when you feel really defeated or discouraged, what do you do? Who do you talk to? Where do you go?
I will sometimes go out and work in the garden if it's the time of year that I can. I go out and be with my animals, or I'll sit in a rocker. I need to rock. This is part of my integration issues. If I'm not rocking, I'm not very happy. And I'm devoted to them. I'll have to admit to you, depression is a problem. Everybody in my family has it, and for some of us, it's crippling. It can be at times. It's literally you want to crawl under a house and be very dark for a while. But I'll call Mary. Mary is my light. I will call her when I really can't stand it anymore. And she has a way of kind of bringing me out of it. I have young men who work for me that are covered with tattoos and body piercings. No, but they're wonderful, wonderful human beings. And they have a wisdom that you kind of, it surprises you. To me, it helps to talk to other people, but to be honest with them and say, you know what? If I had a gun, I'd put it in my mouth now, and I'd pull the trigger. And they'll go, oh, no, that we're not going to do that. I've not been that bad. I'm exaggerating, but you feel, and I think it's also part of being an artist is you're dealing with defeat a lot because you're self-conscious and you're worried. I don't know. I worry about things that most people don't worry about. When my mother died, I went into therapy. And I told my therapist, I've dreaded my parents' death from the time I was 5. She says, then you've been clinically depressed most of your life, and probably have. I don't take medication because I was in the Sandy Hook disaster and lost all of those people. And I actually flew out just before it happened, but I watched it on television just like you did. And then I collapsed with this horrible pain here, a funny feeling here, and like somebody had a hold of my left arm. So I thought, I'm having a heart attack. My mother's spirit, this is not a lie, came next to me and whispered in my ear, Tricia, call 911. You're in a great deal of trouble. Here's why women die, and you need to hear me now, and you men too. I didn't call them. I was too embarrassed. I didn't want to get in an ambulance. I mean, I can walk. I'm not going to get into an ambulance. So I got into a car and drove myself. Luckily, I wasn't having a heart attack. Had I been, I could have taken you out, opposing me on a highway. I didn't think of that. I didn't think that could happen. And plus, if you're in an ambulance and you're dying, they can save you. But if you're driving a car, no such luck. But as it turns out, I wasn't having a heart attack. They did a heart cath and found out I had 3 blockages, 2 in the widowmaker alone. And my daughter, she transferred me to her hospital in Kalamazoo, and And when they did the heart cath, I said, well, am I going to have a heart attack? He said, no, you're going to drop dead, and you will be dead before you hit the floor. I said, so what are we going to do? He said, triple bypass in about half an hour. Didn't have time to worry. So, appropriate of what you're saying, I have to be very careful of any medications I take, because a lot of them are contraindicated. I'm on blood pressure. I'm not on blood thinners, and the good news, they physically looked at my heart. I mean, I've got a scar from here to here. And he said, you've got the heart of a 20-year-old. Pipes leading to it, not so much. So I suppose you could have a heart attack at any time, but the depression, actually since that happened, it's not as severe. Maybe it's because you've had to face certain death. And you kind of figure, well, I will tell you this, I hate flying. I don't mind dying, I really don't. I just don't want to be there when it happens. And in an airplane, you're going to be there. I don't want to watch the ground spiraling up and going, oh my God, how am I going to get off? But no, so I have to be very careful. Supposedly, I'm not supposed to have coffee or any stimulants, although it's been 5 years. I probably can. I think this is the reason the knee is so bad. They don't like you doing anti-inflammatories if you've had heart surgery. Nobody has explained to me why. So, I'm about ready to try it, though, because this knee, I will tell you this, I'm being very honest with you. I have never felt old in my life till this. To be sitting in a chair in my house and rocking, and there's my kitchen, and I want a glass of water. And I've got to get out of my chair, and do I have to go in there? So I usually wait till somebody walks in my door. Could you get me a bottle of water out of the refrigerator? But now I'm walking again, but this has been really hard. It's not terribly painful. It's just a constant reminder that you're not 18 anymore. Well, no, it is. And the truth of the matter is, inside I am 18. No, actually I'm 9, trapped in a 74-year-old body. So, to answer your question. All right. Anyone have any other little tidbits they want to know? Yes?
This is a little lighter.
Okay.
Your amazing goats are the goats of my childhood in East Africa. Why is that? And why did you choose
How do I do what? I didn't quite hear you.
Your goats. The goats in your
my goats. I love goats. No, they're wonderful, mirthful animals. You know, when you have babies, they jump around straight-legged. They are the cutest things I've ever seen in my life. And they lift my spirits just to be around them. Now, you said you were in China, and you saw a goat like Nubians, but they are different. They're the kind with the big floppy ears.
Yeah,
what do they call them?
well, those goats, the goats don't like ears in the heart.
Yeah.
When I was young.
Oh, yes. I have Pygmy Goats now, my Nubians. They were all born the same spring. So they all died 15 years later. They all went that same spring. I'm thinking of getting some more Nubians. But you know what I have to think about now is, whenever I've gotten animals, I've always feared I'm going to outlive them. It's the other way around now. And I need to know who's going to take care of them when I am no longer there. And I think the men who work for me, I've got them all primed. Poor Mary doesn't know what she's in for. She's going to have to come there and take care of a few of them. But so I probably have 19 pygmies now. I've got one sheep. Huh? Oh, all right, this isn't fair. Have any of you ever seen Animal Hoarders by any chance? That's closer to the reality than I want to go. I rescue cats. Now, in my house, I have 9, but don't. My house used to be an inn. It's 27 rooms, so you can't tell there's that many because they have certain areas they go. But I on my property, I don't know.
One cat had its own apartment. I am not kidding.
That's true.
One cat had a living room with
Yes, she did.
I do not have cable. It
That's true. That was Callie. Well, but she was sick, and they didn't want her to give the other. And she lived there for a number of years. So, huh? What did you say? I don't know. And I had 2 Weimaraner dogs, and they passed away 2 years ago. And I went to visit they 17 years. That's a long time. And I went to visit my daughter, and she lives in a triplex, and one of her best friends that she's known since she was 7 has one of those apartments. And Michelle rescues Chihuahuas. And Chihuahuas in California, this is horrifying. They're used in dog fights. They're used to throw in the ring, and the dogs tear them apart. And so she rescues them. Well, she kind of showed me, don't you want this beautiful little dog? And I'm going, no. I have a problem with old women who carry a yapping little dog around in their purse. So I flew home, could not stop thinking about her, flew back, and got that dog. I am now one of those ridiculous old women that carries her yapping little dog around in her purse. But Coco isn't obnoxious. She's a wire hair, so she's got long hair, and she isn't one of those Chihuahuas that shake. She's a darling little dog. She really is. But, this is not ever in my life did I think I'd end up with this, because I've never been a small dog person. I've always had very large dogs. But I've got her now, and... What's that?
Really cats.
Well, but she's smaller than they are, so they're not afraid of her. She chases them, it's hysterical, and they just turn around and go, boom, and she rolls. So, poor little thing. But yes.
Do you do any different type of artwork, like when you're not writing something else?
Yes. I've just been talking to this young woman about my fine art is actually disturbing. The art I do for my books is the world that I want to exist. My fine art is the world that I very much fear really does. And I do drawings as big as those gray, and I use a number 2 and a number 6B pencil. They're quite disturbing. I don't think so, but you might. I use representational things that you can identify, but the way I have them juxtaposed to each other in the drawing, you can stand there and draw your own legend. I have in my mind what it meant, but you'll be able to stand there and go, oh, I think this is what it means. It's not disturbing to the point where you're going to fall on the floor and, have a hard time breathing. But it's not sweet and nice stuff. I have a lot of buildings colliding and falling, and lots of life going on, and people that are not terribly attractive. I paint, I do drawings of the poor and the disenfranchised and the people. I was just in California and stunned. I grew up in the Bay Area, and it's a beautiful place, but you should see what underneath the freeways look like. These are cities of homeless people, and their filth is this deep. And, when I was looking at this with my daughter, I'm going, my God, who's going to clean all of this up? And she says, well, actually, Caltrans is cooking a deal with some of the local cities, but they're at war over who has the say. Somebody better come up with something pretty soon. And, I look at them, and there's children, and there's animals, and I go, God Almighty, how does this happen in our country? I think they closed a lot of mental health facilities in California, and the veterans, there's the biggest crime. These people literally sacrificed their lives for our freedom, and this is how they're being treated. That is just so outrageous to me. But I guess, I don't know what money they're going to come up with to do it. I don't know. But it's quite disturbing. But believe it or not, that's the kind of things I draw. That's what I'm depicting. asking, I guess, whoever is standing there to take a look at this. This is happening around you. And, pour your heart out. Things have got to change. Whether they do or not, I don't know. So that's kind of what my work looks like. Yes. You.
Can you speak to your process of the story and the art, how it comes
Okay.
together? What's the chicken, what's the egg?
Mary has seen this, and her daughters, they've seen me do this. I must rock for hours a day, or I can't think. If you are giving me information I need to know, I will come right up to you, but while you're telling me, I'm going to turn away from you, and I'm going to fidget with my hands, and I'm going to be moving. You educators, probably if I were in your classrooms today, would think I'm high-functioning Asperger's. I very well may be. I don't know. I'm in my skin. I don't know. So when I'm rocking, I'm visualizing, and I'm always thinking of stories. I'm certainly affected by the news. I'm affected by stories my friends tell me. I will ruminate on this story. I have little bits and pieces of paper on a table, and I take a pencil and jot them down, but ruminate. Finally, at some point, gather them all up and put them in manila folders, go up to my office, which is a bedroom across from my bedroom, and I'm an author who does not use a computer. I use an IBM Selectric typewriter. I can't use a computer because I can't see the cursor, and apparently that's vital. So I will start fleshing out a story. And I usually can flesh out 2 or 3 of them at once until I really am into one. Then I have to abandon the others until this is finished. I'll flesh it out, and that involves typing it over and over again, making notes in the margins, and fleshing it out. Then I will call my editor, Patty Gouch, or Paula Wiseman, and they are my teachers. I still have teachers, and I will fax these to them. Yes, I still have fax machines. They're becoming obsolete, but I still use one because I don't know how to email. I don't know how to do. Ask her. She's been with me all day trying to do things with my phone, and I can't because I don't know how. But at any rate, my editor will get a hold of it, and they will send it back to me maybe in 2 days, covered with red marks. Those are called corrections. Now, as an author, you have the right to ignore them, but I find my editors are pretty smart. And if they're saying, no, you've given away too much too soon, you need to put this over on this page, they never step on your voice, ever, because your voice is so typical and intrinsic of you. They can't step on your voice, or they might as well write it. So they're very careful not to, but they will point out things that should be, maybe you should consider changing. You have the right to say, no, that was my intent. Well, so Patty and I, let's say, will send it back and forth to each other till the red marks disappear. That goes on for about a month. Then the drawings, I do the same way. I do drawings on typing paper. I'll send the drawings to my art director in New York. She is also my teacher. She is going to make red marks all over it and then send it back to me. Because some mistakes I made at the beginning of my career is I put too much of the image in the center of the page. Well, when you fold the book, you're losing 1% of the image. You have to draw to the outer edges. All right, that process, the dummy stage for me takes the longest because this is where all of the characters insinuate how they're going to look. Once that part of the project is done, another 4 months probably have gone by. Then we combine all of them. We put the text and the drawings together. I go to Staples, and I blow them all up by 25%. All of my drawings in your books, you will notice when you go up and look at those exhibits, they're about 25% larger than you see it in the book, because that way you can get more detail in. When you're drawing smaller, you can't. When you are drawing a larger version, you can get much more detail in. Then when that's done, I send it in and they approve it again. Then they send it back to me. And then I use a light box, put the corrected drawing, and then put the good paper over the top of it and trace it because you have to be careful that the image can't go where the writing is. And unless I'm looking at that, I sometimes go way over where I'm supposed to be. You really have to pay attention. Then I work on color finishes. Now, the color finishes actually take me the least amount of time to do because by then I know exactly what I'm doing because I've done it so many times on this book. So that whole process, my involvement in the book is only about 7 or 8 months. Then we pack the whole thing up, send it to New York. They do what are called color separations. All color books that you see are gotten with only 4 inks, yellow, red, blue, and black. But it is the overlays of those inks that give you the complete spectrum of color. So that is all figured out, luckily, with the machine. In the old days, we used to have to do color separations, and that's horrible. So then they send them to South China. Color books are not printed here in this country. Well, if they are, it's an emergency. Generally, they go to China. And the art director goes, stands on the printing presses, and okays and watches the color. And that's then where the books are bound, thrown in boxes, and then they're sent back to this country. But they don't come via an airplane. They come on a ship that goes through the Panama Canal. Then they come up the west or the east coast of this country, and they offload them in New Jersey. They then sit in a warehouse until the magic publication date. Now that means if you are all booksellers, you can't sell the book 1 day before she does. All of you, that publication date is the first day you're allowed to sell the book. After that, you can do anything you want. So from the time I am sitting there with these little pieces of paper till you see a book on a shelf, almost 2 years have gone by. But my involvement, like I say, is over by about the 8th month. They send me, like F&Gs that I just showed you and things to okay the color, which is kind of ridiculous because I'm happy to let them do it because they're experts. I'm really not. Does that answer it for you? Yes. I use Strathmore. Beautiful paper. And if you go and look at some of those drawings upstairs, that's the paper that they're on, a Strathmore. Yes, sweetie?
I have 2
Yes?
So, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one rotten, red-headed older brother, which is the bane of my existence. What else?
Do you live in the house with 27 bedrooms?
Yeah. It isn't 27 bedrooms. It's my house actually has stood during the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln walked through my house because you as Michiganders probably know this. He was nominated in Jackson. Did you know that? And M60 runs right across the back of my property. He took the stagecoach, which had to stop at my inn because that's where they changed the horses out, down M60. He came in. They said he took a ladle of water. Robert Todd Lincoln was traveling with him. They went out in my front yard. They played catch for about an hour. They came in the house. He had a sandwich. They got back in the stagecoach. They went to Kalamazoo, got on a train, and went back to Springfield, Illinois. And if you come in my house, those of you who've been in my house, I think I showed you, in the hallway there's 2 doorways. One doorway has stage office still written on it. One doorway says baggage room. It's very faint, but that's where they, I wish I could time travel. Can you imagine standing in my hall and just watching this man walk by? Oh, I want to hear what he sounds like. His writing is captivating. What an amazing person he must have been. What a person he must have been. So, yeah, that answer it for you? Okay. We probably need to get out of here. I've kept you guys forever. But thank you so much for coming. And God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.